time this weekend, welcoming GB Open coach Tommy Garwood into the booth. Afternoon.
Afternoon, how we doing?
Yeah, I'm feeling good. You must be feeling a little bit better after that last one.
Yes, yeah, it was good. Good to come up with some real energy. I think compared to felt bruised after last night's game, so nice to come out hard.
And now you've got, of course, you'll be preparing for your final in a few hours' time, but a couple of finals before then. Starting off with the women's final here. How does how you approach a final change depending on whether you're the favourite versus the underdog?
I feel like sometimes it's favourable to be the underdog. You know, the expectation on favourites can be a bit of a barrier to performance sometimes. But I think what we've seen as successful in the games we've played, we try and approach everything as a top level game. Is having everyone together. You know, that word together, I think, is a core tenet of what we're trying to do at GB.
Yeah, certainly you definitely see it. Maybe not so much in Frisbee, where there's certainly not the media around it, but you know, well, we're at Grasshoppers, so I'll use an example of the Six Nations, right? Where so many of those contests where both sides try to talk each other up as the favourite because they want to battle for that underdog role that seems to give them a little bit more fire.
Yes.
Which is always interesting. I think you should be like, no, we're favourite, own it, be the bad guy. Yeah. Sometimes you need a little bit of that.
I think so, and actually, that's what we saw last night. There was from Canada after their bruising on Friday night. They came out with that sort of typical like North American confidence, where like, no, actually, we are really good. We are the favourites, and there was a bit of a flip in how I think the mentality they approached that game with.
Yeah, compared to Friday when they felt pretty timid. Yeah, again, there was certainly that swagger about them, and it's a swagger that Yaka generally carry. You know, one of the titans of the continent. You know, European champions at points. I think they are very comfortable with wearing that tag, which has its own sort of pitfalls. But a Bristol side that, you know, has shown that they are a contender as well. You know, a couple of years ago when Yaka were runners-up at EUCF in 2022, Bristol were the bronze medal winners, so they have shown that they have form right at the top level of European Ultimate. These two sides did meet, by the way, in pool play, and Yaka took that game 12-6, but they do say that it's tough to beat the same team twice, even for what seems like potentially a one-sided scoreline. Yaka beginning on offense, Babikian. Tahir in really tight coverage. Back to Mondio, now around to Matias. Castillo in the centre. Yaka pounding it underneath so far. Delaunay. Tossing the break around, teased the defender in, but didn't get there, and then Mondio finishes with the break in the end zone to Meisel for a score. Clean, crisp hold to begin from Yaka.
Yeah, the Bristol defence looked good. Forcing some swings across the end zone, but then a couple of passes through the middle. I think that we'll see an adjustment hopefully for the rest of the game now around the end zone. Tighten up on the hole at the front of the end zone. I think that's the only adjustment they need to make there.
But Yaka, again, you know, I think that experience that often you come out, you know, in a final and you start on offense, you feel the pressure of, you know, we need to get this right, we need to start fast, and Yaka, I think, seemed quite unfazed by it all.
Yeah, they did. Melted through the field, but that's former European champions. So much experience on that line. It's great to have them here at London.
Yeah, they are a welcome returnee here to the Grasshoppers Rugby Club in West London. Yes, it's the wrong side of London, but we'll let them off. Not that I have my biases or anything. Tisson's got the disc ready to pull. We've seen Yaka at times this tournament. You know, teams feel like they're in games at half time, and then Yaka just have that extra depth and experience to pull away in the second half. We'll see if Bristol can match them in the early going here. First pass to Boyd, who is a certified shooter when given the opportunity. Boyd again. Oldfield underneath. Standing tall, back to Boyd. Boyd to Kantorovitz. Oldfield asserting herself down the open side. Now getting a bit of lateral movement. Man in space. Keeping the disc moving quickly. Oldfield. Can she get off this sideline? Taking the reset. Good fundamentals. Oh, a miscommunication. Boyd pulled out of the card and the disc went anyway. Chloe Olivier, who we didn't actually see earlier, on intercepts and leading past to Delaunay. Olivier is continuing towards the end zone. Tisson calls for the swing and gets. And now a bit of air underneath it, rolling it across to Olivier. Just one miscommunication. It looked pretty smooth for Bristol until that point, but Yaka, given the opportunity, did not let it slip.
Yeah, really ruthless break there. I think see a Yaka side that are really good on the fast break on defence. It'd be interesting to see if there's any static starts, what the look is, but looking really threatening, going quickly.
Yeah, very happy to. What I liked is that Olivier was in the perfect position and could easily just, slapped it to the floor, jogged forward and say, let's get a slow start. But no, taking advantage of that miscommunication and having defenders out of position, meaning that, we can go on this fast break and we can get down all the way towards the end zone before you get into position.
Absolutely, and there's so much benefit to that. That was essentially a 3v3 in the end zone.
Score check.
Bristol looking really good. They exposed some poaches from this weak side. Good slash across to start, and yeah, just a small miscommunication on the swing, but I'm sure they'll tidy that up.
They changed jerseys, that's my fault. Castillo getting ready to pull. Hocking electing to field from the floor, and the first pass sent us to Boyd. Trying to isolate Henry in the centre. Might take the leader to Hocking, who's shooting down the sideline, and the tall frame of Tash Collins is a mighty tempting target. Bristol getting it right at the second time of asking.
Yeah, really brilliant flow, isolating space in the middle of the field, clearing cutters deep, and then Tash absolutely beansing it deep for the goal. It's a really nice shot from Lisa.
It felt like that, there was a clear game plan of how we're going to set up. We've got a pool play we want. How are we isolating this space? And it felt like they were just able to fully execute on that. Hocking stealing a march down the far sideline. Her influence continues to grow on this Bristol outfit. And Tash Collins, again, continuing to be a threat on the deep strike. Absolutely.
Felt like there was a bit of a really positive reaction there from the Bristol O-line to come out and score quickly. They saw that initial cut was covered and sevened into the middle. That was a really nice change of direction and change of momentum.
See, Collins does have an ankle brace on that right ankle, but seemed relatively unhindered there. I think so many ultimate players, how many of them are ever really truly 100% fit? You find ways, you get everyone's wearing all sorts of compression sleeves, or you've got ankle braces, knee supports or whatever, whatever you can to get your body good to go.
Yeah, I think that can be a separator, that you see the teams that are relentlessly making sure that they're fit and healthy and they're taking time away off the pitch if they need to. I think they come out and perform really strongly, consistently.
Bringel offline with the resets, foul called. Portuguese international Bringel, you see wearing those Eurostars cleats. Representative, I think on a couple of occasions on the All-Star Tour. Just checking everyone's in position. Just checked in on the mark. Yaka in space. Now Tisson. Delaunay. Has Bringel. It's a real purpose when she has the disc in hand. Back now. Trying to find the break space. So the French mix standout Matthias, and she punches it in the end zone to the score to Delaval.
Yeah, really good patience there actually around the end zone. Didn't try and force it, found a really big swing space on the far side. They're moving the disc across the field laterally really, really well. I think that's something that we've seen in years gone past, and it's remained a strength for them.
yeah, I think we sometimes forget how difficult it is to be at that top table year after year, season upon season. And I mean, there's a reason that Yaka are such a European powerhouse, because without wanting to labour the point, they're really good. Like, it sounds obvious, but I think you forget, because they've been there for so long, quite how good they are.
Absolutely, and I'm sure that what's helped them is a really good development program as well. So they've had players that were maybe on the fringes in previous years now. It's really starting to come through and have great experience of training week in, week out with the elite players that are still on that team.
Yeah, and yes, they have those kind of satellite players who come in and aren't necessarily training with them week in, week out. But, you know, they understand the system, they understand their roles, and there is a real clarity about what they're doing. I also feel this year their offense has been smoother than I've ever seen it as well, which is, you know, worrying. Oh, they still have gears to go up into. Boyd. With Yaka sagging off the handlers again. Saw them pull this look quite a lot against Gravity in their semi-final. And they've got to swing to this near side to Andrews if they want it. And they will take it. Boyd to Oldfield. Wide open in space in the centre, Andrews. Just good recognition to just sit in that pocket of space and not try and do too much. Hocking now to Mann. Now Oldfield. Bristol confidently working their way downfield. Boyd in a bit of a power position. Barca applying pressure on the mark. Boyd looking for a way out, sees the inside window and hits to Mann. A bit static in the end zone. Going back to Boyd, wanted to shift the flow of traffic back in there, but they open up that break side space beautifully. And Saskia Kantorovitz has just got such an innate sense of timing and spacing in the end zone.
Yeah, that's really impressive. I think one thing to note there as well is Tash pulling players deep in the end zone and being able to isolate that space. Good response from Bristol to that screen. We see screens that often will leave handlers and not worry about them, so great job finding a pocket there. Patience is a real virtue against the screen until you can find that pocket as you identified behind the screen.
And then you're right, the coverage drawn a little bit to the back, and that break side, well, inside break space opened up to Kantorovitz. Bristol very much in this game. Just the one turnover so far on that miscommunicated reset, which Yaka, to their credit, were able to pounce upon.
Yeah, it's really good to see a response from the game yesterday. Feels like a really motivated Bristol team coming out ready to run hard.
It has mercifully cooled a little bit as well. After, you know, this morning where, you know, the sun out in full flow, and when you're on the artificial turf like this with the rubber crumb, it really does radiate that heat back out. Some of the GB lads looking a little bit worn out.
Yeah, I told them to go get some shade, but they're clearly not listening.
Oh, the sun's gone in, so everywhere's shade. Unfortunately, not everyone can join me on commentary, so more fool them. Olivier to Brinjel. Thought she might shoot it, but no. Such a deliberateness to her face. Tisson hitting the inside on the bounce back. Getting the dish off. Tisson, you can tell she really wants to hit that inside space. Just waiting for the cut to come, and it does from Olivier for the score.
Yeah, so that's a real threat. I think that's something Bristol will identify, but really great work to relentlessly getting free in that handler space. I thought Bristol did a pretty good job of containing them. See on the replay here that she had to come back into a space, didn't gain much, but then really incisive inside flick. That's such a great shot.
How are you going to think about slowing that down, making that tougher to get off?
I think one thing we've noticed is pulling people forwards to the front of the end zone is helpful. You sacrifice shots to the deep, but then they're much harder. So initial flashes to the front of the end zone might be useful there, especially if we identify that front of the end zone right in the middle is a real threat.
it's tricky to say, well, we'll just come a little more flat on the force and try and stop those insides, because then you unleash that free around. There's always that sort of give and take.
There is. It's always that way with defence. You know, if you go flatter on the force, you give up swings, but maybe you limit the forward options. It's the same way we saw that screen. And likewise, if you pull players forward to the front of the end zone, then you give up shots behind. So it's a question of what you're willing to give up.
And Ultimate does feel at times fundamentally like an offensive first game. And as defence, how can you cover everything? It's almost impossible with the skills that throwers have now, especially. High release over the top to Oldfield. Scoobering again. Oldfield doing a good job of staying in that soft spot. Feel like Yaka might transition soon. There's the shot across the end zone. Oldfield has the matchup there. Beats Rasta. And Bristol with another clean hold, 4-3. This so far has been a game about offensive precision.
I think so. Gemma Henry with a really nice shot across the end zone. Oldfield in so much space. They isolated her really well. And I think we're seeing Bristol really getting into the game now. It's great.
There's Oldfield, former Glasgow Show Game MVP, the real prize.
I think that's the people's show game, isn't it?
100%. And you're right to point out the shot there from Henry, which made it look difficult. It is, with the cutter kind of coming, running almost straight away from you there. To measure that throw properly is not as easy as she made it look.
Absolutely not.
Offence is on top here, 4-3, just over 15 minutes into this women's final here at London Invite.
Slightly different approach from Bristol to play against that screen. They found the pockets immediately behind the screen and didn't look to swing as much. It's good to see they've got two routes past it. So I wonder if we'll see Yaka change something at their next D point.
Bit of miscommunication between Matthias and Delaval about who's going to pick up the ball. Thankfully, they're able to shelve it there. Bringel, pump fakes the backhand. Delaval calling for the swing, and she brings down with aplomb. Now across midfield with Olivier. Yaka vocal on the sidelines as ever. So good at bringing that energy. Bringel to Olivier, two of them running a little bit of jailbreak. Bringel to the end zone, Delaval for the score, and 5-3. Still just the singular turnover in this contest.
That's what we see as competition gets tighter and you get to the end of the tournament, especially in finals, is that games that may be decided by one or two breaks. I'm not saying this is, but the margins are incredibly tight.
And so far, offensively, befitting of a final, but you feel like at some point defences are going to find a way in.
I think so. Bristol got close there. I think they've recognised that Yaka haven't really looked deep, and they did a really great job of containing cutters initially. That was a slightly longer offensive point for Yaka, so that's a real positive adjustment from Bristol, and I think they'll really hone in on that.
Castillo to pull. Back in the women's division this weekend after playing and winning the mixed crown at Windmill.
The final goal.
Yeah, a brilliant toe-in on that sideline as well. Feel like in a game where Maria Castillo, she's got to give me one big play in this final, and what a time to provide it to punctuate the victory.
Yaka more matchy now. Yaka have done away with the screen and they're playing a bit tighter on the handlers, it looks like.
I like this because it felt like Bristol not only shown they were comfortable playing against it, but they had multiple ways of playing against it. Hocking with the shot. Babikian, as ever, with the layout block.
That was monstrous.
That's Babikian, baby. Again, if there is a play to be made, you can be damn sure that she'll find a way to make it. And she got it so clean as well.
To be able to take that line and not have any contact is so impressive. Help from Oldfield at the back. Oh.
Yeah, Meisel shooting, but Castillo able to undercut her. Now Bocanegra shooting for Castillo. Yaka break once more. Their D-lines had 2 opportunities and they have pounced on them both.
We talk a lot at GB about efficiency and
2 for 2, you know, it's pretty efficient.
Very efficient, and that's the requirement, you know, when you at this level. It's almost baseline, so really impressive.
It felt like Oldfield had a good position there, but Castillo read it well and was able to undercut her, and then Oldfield trying to cover Castillo, who gets it out of her hands, and then bang, she's gone in a flash. And Yaka have opened up a 6-3 lead in this women's final here at London Invite. What a block, though, by Babikian.
That was incredible, and to make that block to make up those yards and then be down at the end zone to then support with the goal is really, really impressive. That's an incredible work rate.
Work rate indeed. Bristol taking the timeout. Can they find the way in? We'll see when we return.
Help School Electric, become a member.
Those who do not know their history can never relive it. The skies, the dives, the sideline smiles. Our past is held in photo albums, drinking stories. The present is a gift. And here at ULTI.TV, we want to make sure we always appreciate it, capturing the immortal moments of Ultimate from around the world and making sure everyone can enjoy them for free, forever. Because the future belongs to all of us.
Yaka 6, Bristol 3 in a women's final so far of the highest offensive quality. Benji Reese, Tommy Garwood right here with the best seat on the house on the sideline, although if you can't be here in person, watching it live on ULTI.TV is pretty good.
I'd say that's the next best thing. Really appreciative of all you do.
Hey, you're one of us now, appreciative of all we do. It's been lovely to have kind of a revolving cast and crew to join me in the booth this weekend and get some unique insights and perspectives. Boyd. Wonder if having turned over with that deeper look, whether Bristol will just be a little bit more reticent to open things up here. Like a 3-3-1 zone, almost trying to force them into that intermediate space between the second line of defence and the deep shot, but they split Caro Tisson with that blade that finds man. Dumping back to Hocking. Now Boyd.
Transition to match D at the end zone.
Yeah, they dissolved nicely, and then the shot is just too much for Boyd. The space was there, but zipped it too quickly.
Bristol did everything right there. They had some patience around the zone, found a really nice shot over the top. Couldn't quite find it at the end zone.
It felt like they split that zone perfectly. And it's always a little frustrating when you can't make the most of it. Tisson just plucking the cone away.
Test of resilience now for Bristol. Can they fight back?
Olivier is going to open it up. Brinjel and Delaunay maybe got in each other's way a bit. Yaka turning it over for the very first time. Hocking on the far sideline. Boyd wants a little more support closer. Still count going to be getting high. Somehow gets it off to Hocking.
There's the swing.
Man, bouncing it back with Andrews. A little bit more zip about some of these passes. But Yaka able to just slow things down again. Taking on the break to Andrews. Bristol back over halfway. Hocking is hucking, looking for Kantorovitz. And Bringel does brilliantly, but maybe has got a little bit over-eager on contact. Having a discussion here, Bringel and Kantorovitz. Turnover stands. Always think, you know, you're well within your rights to talk and have the discussion, and I'm just not sure that Kantorovitz quite had it.
Yeah, it seems like a good decision. And those types of discussions, when a game's this close in a final, are really hard, so credit to the players there, kept it level, and it looks like a good outcome.
Le Boyne down the line. Finding the space to the post Olivier. Thought she might slot that one into Bringel, but no. The high release, or maybe going to float too much. This should be Oldfields. And she plucks it just to make sure. To play it down on the floor for Yaka. And this does not look great.
No, it looked like a tough landing on the ankle.
Oh, yeah, you can see that the ankle turn on landing, and Bringel is in a real spot of bother here. Let's take a little bit of a breather on the booth while we can get Bringel some treatment, and we'll rejoin you for the women's final shortly.
That was called Electric Become a Member.
We are a group of ultimate players, coaches and video enthusiasts. We've worked with the major federations and the greatest events.
We're on a mission to make Ultimate huge. We want our videos and live streams to be free to watch.
We want to make stories that not only reach you,
but also reach people outside the Ultimate community.
Like and subscribe, ULTI.TV, the best in the world.
Become a member and
fund
fund
our work to cover more events in the future and to bring more stories and live coverage to the eyes of the Ultimate world and beyond.
Enjoying the show? Show your support for the live stream and the people making the show. Buy a super chat or super sticker on YouTube directly. Select your donation and type your message to the world. And share. All donations go into directly funding new shows. Buy a super sticker or super chat now. Thank you.
Women's final here at London Invite. Currently Yaka up 6-3. Disc will be Bristol's when we return, but we have a stoppage here. Inez Bringel under a high disc. Oldfield got the block cleanly, but Bringel on the landing, you could just see that ankle, you know, not behave in any way that it should. There is a paramedic there providing some treatment, so I think we are going to take a little bit more of a breather. And yeah, the sides, as you can see, they're kind of coming off the field because they know it might be a little while before we come back, so we will step away here as well, and the London Invite women's final will be back when we return. Yaka 6, Bristol 3. Bristol will be coming back in with the disc. Brinjel has made her way off the field, but unable to put any weight on that left ankle. And just, crossing everything we have, that it's, while it did not look good, hopefully there's nothing major going on there. Horrible one to see, and it does take all the energy out of the game.
Great pick-up from Hocking.
Yeah, they've got to kind of clear your mind, and it's weird because you're worried about your teammate or your opponent, but you have to park that and get back into the game, as Bristol have done there with Henry going down the line for the score. It's a situation that no one wants to be in, right? Whether it's your teammate or your opposition, but unfortunately these things do happen, and you have to find ways to reset yourself and just continue to try and play your game out there, which Bristol, to their credit, didn't look like they'd missed a beat.
Yeah, they came out really hard. Great catch from Hocking. Nice find up the line to Henry. Both having a pretty strong game to start.
Have you been in a situation like that in your time coaching GB, where one of your players has got injured and you've had to have that kind of stoppage that really just stops the flow of the game dead?
Yeah, we saw it last year in the Euros final, where Joel Terry, when on a layout bid on Demarais, popped his shoulder, and that was really hard because Joel's been an outstanding performer for us for the whole time he's been with GB. So that knocked us a bit, I think, but yeah, we recovered in moments during that game, not quite enough.
Mondio looking for the lead pass to Castillo, finishing with a flourish.
Looks like a dominator style set until they've got to halfway, transitioning to the cutters now.
Somebody is pumped!
Meisel resetting her feet before swinging round to Castillo. Wanted the continuation to Mondio, but thought better of it.
Good work on the force, making that break hard. Oh, lovely inside.
Yeah, Meisel seemed effortless on the release, and now has it back from her compatriot, the Austrian Zenz.
Buzz switch there.
Just switching it at the front, that's wide, and Castillo happy to get a face full of rubber crumb again.
2 layouts and a point, unbelievable.
I mean, that's Castillo all over. Now, I think she wanted to try and backpedal it all the way in, and then decided, you know what, I better make sure I catch it first. We can score with the next pass. Opening it up to go all the way across to Meisel. Trying to switch the horizontal field position, and Meisel blading it in there to Drucker.
Nice offense from Yaka, real patience. Bristol reacted well, some good buzz switches. They stopped some IOs and breaks, but relentless, especially from Castillo.
Yeah, for the first time they've had the disc since that slightly extended stoppage. It's good to see that Yaka, they didn't seem like they'd lost any rhythm offensively themselves.
No, not at all. And when you have a player like Castillo, who there was really all over the point, 2 layouts to save the disc, and playing really intelligently, that's really hard to stop.
Yeah, Maria Castillo's the truth. I've been saying this, and it's it's great to see players like Castillo, who have been around for a fair few years, but even if it's the last couple of seasons where she really, I think, has to flash across people's radars. Yes, I'm going to mention Super Team again. Thanks, Steph. I assume my check's in the mail. But it's great to see, players like, Castillo, Mexican, playing for Yaka and played for Belgium in Mixed Masters, actually at EMUC last year. Who else on the female matching side? Players like East Block's Christina Talista. Players who from the less-known Ultimate Powerhouses get to play with the superstars and prove that, they are equally as good, even if they're not well as known. Although Steph was lacking any British representation on that, so I'll have to get a word in for next time.
Yeah, disappointing to see.
Munier getting the block there off the rising throw. Boyd, he had it rise as Henry was trying to bring it in. Yaka shooting deep immediately, and Chloe Olivier able to box out and send Yaka into half with the break to make it 8-4. One pass, a dagger from Delaval.
That's that efficiency again. The game hasn't looked, 4 points apart.
It hasn't felt one-sided, but I think Yaka have just been so crisp. This is not an easy throw. Going right away from you, and as well, Olivier gets her feet tangled up with Grace Andrews and still holds herself firm, takes a breath. And Olivier is, such a strong player. She adds even more to what is a good Yaka side. So seeing her out there, which she wasn't for the semi-final, yeah, Yaka, you can see why they are one of the best sides in Europe, and they have been for a number of years.
Absolutely, and when you have players like that who are very confident in themselves, it bleeds into the rest of the team. I think there's a confidence that they're able to spread, and a calmness as well. It
feels like there's, also we've seen Yaka kind of have larger rosters at tournaments in the past. The one that, trying to think of players who are not here, the one that stands out to me, I think, just because of watching France mixed last weekend, is Swan Lacoste-Lefebvre, who has been a revelation both for Yaka and for France mixed this season, after kind of making her way up through the junior ranks, which is something that I'm really jealous of. Countries like France and Italy, that they have this real progression from like the youth national sides all the way through senior level in a way that feels like GB haven't quite cracked to the same degree.
Yeah, it's interesting, and we saw France last year didn't enter an under-24s team to pull focus to both their under-20s, who are really exciting, and their senior team.
Yeah, and I think that, let's be honest, it drew some consternation. There were a lot of questions asked. Certainly I was disappointed not to see France at U24s, but you can only play so much. Ultimate Riot, you think about as well, you want to make sure that players are in top condition, and as well, unfortunately, these events cost money, right? You can only ask players to bear so much financial burden as well. And in the end, they will say, well, hey, we did pretty well at EYUC. And maybe they underperformed a little bit in open at women's at EUC, but mixed, boy, did they get the job done there. Emphatic winners in the end. So they might look at it and say, actually, you know what? We back our decision, especially because with maybe less so with under-24s, which are every 2 years, but there are lots of opportunities for the French youth players to play and demonstrate that they have the reward as well, that it's not just you'll play under 24s and then you'll disappear into the ether, that there is that progression through into the senior sides.
Absolutely, and depending on how big your pool of junior players is, there's an element of protection there as well, ensuring they're getting high quality ultimate but also making sure they're not overplayed.
So 8-4, second half getting underway then. Bristol with work to do. But it doesn't feel as one-sided as the scoreline might suggest.
A sag from Yaka. Castillo following her cutter into the handler space. Oh, Hocking, good grab.
Excellent bid. And now shooting, travel called on this near sideline. I'm not sure Oldfield saw.
Slightly muted celebrations. Not sure if there's a call there. Doesn't look like it.
Yeah, I think Boccanegra was suggesting that she travelled, but everyone else seemed to walk away. So I don't think her teammates were. I mean, maybe she does take an extra step there. So I see why. I'm not sure how much of an effect it necessarily had on the throw.
Yeah, I think when you're completely unmarked, there's only so much a travel gives you. Great bid, close on Hocking, good catch under pressure, and a nice look to Oldfield in the end zone.
Yeah, going for the bid there, Rika, is that when obviously you put a lot of pressure on, and even if you don't get a tip right, sometimes you just get that phantom defense. There's Brinjal receiving some treatment on the far sideline. So she, seems to have composed herself somewhat. Understandably, you would be upset when that happens, and it must have been exceptionally painful, not knocking her for that, by the way. Of course, it's just good to see that she seems, she seems at the very least in less immediate anguish, which is good. I was going to say the bit on the near side, that if you don't get there, you're then not in position to put a force on, and that allows Hocking to step into that throw to Oldfield.
Yaka creating lots of space downfield. Babakian relentlessly coming under, and that's a really good looking shot to Castillo in the end zone.
That is a real peach from Babakian. Again, utilising her, not necessarily hucking deep from a standstill, but getting her in motion, coming back towards the disc, attacking, turning upfield. Castillo then with the continuation on the timing, and Babakian really stretching the field, going right to the back, using the full depth of the end zone in its entirety. And Yaka getting their first offensive possession of the second half, finished with a bang.
That was a really excellent play from Yaka. I've been so impressed with the tempo across all teams this weekend, playing with real intensity, and the women's division has been a highlight. This certainly, that point has been a highlight there.
Yeah, it does feel like, I think partly because, and looking at the weather on Friday evening, I wasn't sure this was going to be the case. It's been relatively favourable conditions for the bulk of the weekend, so I think that does behoove a more offensive game plan, certainly. But yeah, feels like, but pretty much every side I've seen, there is, I don't want to say that they're rapid necessarily, but they've got a good rhythm, a good, quite maybe like an allegro tempo, rather than anything particularly outrageous. It's been too long since I've looked at a piece of sheet music because I've forgotten other words now.
I think it's a good sign of timing across the weekend, where yes, it's still, we're sort of in the middle of summer, and if we think long term, Euros is until September, but with UK nationals in a couple of weeks' time,
it's a good sign. Teams rounding into form as the competition gets stiffer.
Great break around from Oldfield to Henry.
Yeah, taking it on well. Henry trying to zip the inside through, and Kantorovic's coming back towards it. Steals in front of the defender for the goal.
Faked the around, opened up the IO, had to zip that pretty hard, and a good catch under pressure there.
Yeah, couldn't afford to hang about.
Good response from Bristol. Good tempo. Great around break under pressure. That was a high stall break as well.
It's an excellent break. And yeah, just threatening the around to get the space there to sneak it under the arm of Tisson. And, had to really, pull the ripcord, otherwise it was not going to get in there.
Yeah. And again, Bristol sort of taking advantage of a slightly isolated end zone.
You can see for Bristol, Alice Beeching giving some instructions on the line. Of course, would be playing for GB Mix, but isn't, while she rehabs that Achilles problem. Can't wait till she's back out there. Love watching her play.
Yeah, excellent player. And so useful to have on the sideline.
Yeah, reads the game really well and provides that kind of helpful communication. Mondio to Bass then for the first pass.
Looks like a split stack.
And Meitel looking deep for Castillo. It's almost like stealing.
When you've got someone who's cooking like that, it's almost unfair, I think, at times.
Yeah, that's Castillo's third goal of the game. Meitel with a second assist to go along with an earlier goal as well. Yaka very much. This feels like post-season form for their offense.
Again, it's that timing. That's a great undercut and then in-step huck immediately within a second of catching that disc.
Yes, timing is crucial because you're not holding it, you're not waiting for that cut to come, or you're not looking downfield and Castillo's already in the end zone and it's like, well, I don't have anywhere to go with it. No, it's Meitel's catching, turning around, and Castillo, but she's begun to create that separation. The plant's already happened, and she's beginning to open up that space so you can still lead her towards the end zone.
I think that's a bit of a difference maker for elite teams, is someone catches a disc and they know exactly what to expect. they know that they will have a pass and they're prepared to throw. I think teams falter and stutter when there's uncertainty about, oh, if I catch this disc, am I going to be able to get the next pass off? Well, I'm not quite sure.
Boyd now on about the brick mark. Doesn't want the swing to Oldfield, so they're going to bounce it back with Hocking. Boyd looking towards the centre.
Henry's been very impressive this game, bouncing between handler and downfield spaces.
Yeah, using her quite fluidly, but been a huge yard gainer for them in that sort of intermediate space.
It's incredibly beneficial for a team to have hybrids.
Yeah, hybrid, that's the word.
Oldfield, good tempo. Some nice give goes. Up to halfway now.
Yeah, and then looking towards the reset, not waiting till, still 7, 8. A couple of beats and then, okay, let's get it off the sideline, let's get the disc moving again. And part of the reason why that's nice is because it prevents picks from happening and slowing down your offense and just stopping that rhythm you've got.
Bristol playing a little bit in one half at the moment. I think they unlock more from their offense if they get 1 or 2 swings out and they're able to misread in the end
yeah,
zone.
Oldfield, I think, deceived a little bit by the flight, was expecting to come down a little bit quicker, and in the end it arced over her head.
I think that's the one time that Bristol haven't quite isolated in the end zone there. There's a couple of defenders around that maybe put Oldfield off.
Matthias to the front line then.
Poachy look from Bristol.
First break opportunity for either side in the second half, actually.
Yaka just running through the poachers, using their legs. Offline.
There is definitely some mixing and matching between Yaka's lines. So you know their D-line is capable of playing really good offense. And you are seeing it right there. A dime ball dropped by Rika Kjær-Knudsen. And Jean Delaval continues to stuff the stat sheet. Yaka with another break, 11-6. And for a game that, feels like Bristol are right there or thereabouts, Yaka have just been so pointed whenever they've got it.
I think that's a 100% conversion rate from those breaks. Close to. 80%.
Pretty good.
Yes. I mean, 4 from 5. Again, really impressive. And a difference from Yaka, it seems, in the second half is a willingness to look deep. And before, Bristol started to get on top a little bit with the defence, especially early in an offensive possession, where they really refused to give any cuts underneath. And now they have to threaten the deeps, and that strategy is going to have to be adjusted again.
I mean, this is a bit of a masterclass in efficiency from Yaka, although Bristol, to their credit, their offense has looked pretty good as well. I don't think it's been a question of, again, as much as the scoreline might suggest that Yaka are clearly a cut above. Bristol, I have been impressed with them, but it just hasn't quite been enough. I guess when you're facing a side as relentless as Yaka can be, you don't have to do a lot wrong.
No, not at all. And that's been the case here. Bristol are playing well. Yaka are just refusing when they get the disc, really, to give the disc back.
So parsimonious with it.
Zoney now trying to slow Bristol down, testing their patience.
Boyd doesn't mind putting those hammers up, though. That was not the space to put it to, though, as Zen's able to step in front, and then Oldfield, I think, tried to pull out, but still got a little piece of Zen's on the way through.
Yeah, touch of contact there. Good job not that there wasn't any more. Castillo on.
Yikes.
I think some there as well. Bristol early on in the game were good at finding space over the top of that initial screen. Feels like they didn't quite, the second half, they haven't quite unlocked those swing spaces, which are free. Yaka are poaching off quite a lot on the weak side. We haven't quite seen Bristol respond to that.
Boccanegra.
Good force. Great defence from Henry and on Castillo. That's a tough matchup.
Now Bath. Been relatively muted by their standards, but when you've got teammates popping off all around you don't necessarily need to do too much.
It's so beneficial to have players that can drive the bus and can also facilitate really well.
Yeah, they've been a key enabler.
Absolutely. Yaka advancing up the field now. They've right in the end zone.
Lovely cut there from Meisel on the doorstep. She's had a great game as well. A foul called. Contact between Oldfield and Babikian in that reset position for Yaka.
Bristol, after the turn there, they did a good job of containing. Stopped some swings with really relentless handler defence, but Yaka just jailbroke down the side, got a couple of unders and nice up the line there.
Feels like Meisel's only option here is really to go into the backfield. And there it goes, bouncing it with Bath. Bristol heavily poaching that open side for Boccanegra, comes all the way through to provide a reset space.
It's good defence from Bristol, forcing Yaka to play in small spaces until they get that swing out.
Yeah, this is quite bend but don't break, and then Castillo, it felt like, got a little bit, I don't want to say bored, impatient maybe. Felt like we're going nowhere. Let's see if we can catch Bristol off guard. Oldfield was ready. Does really well taking that Babikian matchup.
Absolutely, that's such a difficult matchup.
I mean, they're all difficult matchups. Let's not pretend that they're not, but yeah, that one's a particularly fun one. That's better, the scuba there to Hocking. Hocking seeing the shot to Kantorovitz, and it just about evaded her.
Bass picking up quickly. Big swing.
Meisel now. Castillo's gone. Meisel's putting it, but I think it's blading a little bit early. And Henry was in position to read it. Boyd over the top. It's Kantorovitz in the chest this time.
In these long points, when both sides are fatigued, being stubborn is crucial. Being stubborn and taking positive options and hoping Bristol, we can see that from them now.
Squeezes that one through to Andrews. Andrews back to Kantorovitz.
Nice
Mondio flattens up on the force, and the around break goes to Oldfield, who overthrew Henry. It was there.
It was there.
I will say this is the most turnovers we've seen in a point so far this game. It's the fifth, which, you know, is, in the grand scheme of things, actually not really outrageous.
No.
But the game's just been generally very clean. At this point and one other, been kind of the only real grinds out there. Substitution happening for Bristol. Looks like Andrews off, I think, and Durbin on. Didn't see... yeah, I think Matthias has come on for Yaka, with Drucker coming off.
Durbin on for Andrews, I think.
Looks that way. It's Mondio barrows underneath, and Rasta rips it down the sideline. Great D from Kantorovitz.
Really brilliant D. Durbin went slightly flatter on the force there, made the huck a little bit harder, and great defense there from Kantorovitz.
Yeah, trying to force it a bit wider and get more of that angle on it. Hocking back to Boyd. There underneath it.
Good read.
Castillo pressures, but Oldfield stands firm. And this is off to Van Eter. Hocking is a swing if they want it, but going shorter to Boyd instead. Now in Hocking's grasp. Boyd telling Durbin, we can get a bit more aggressive with that positioning, get a few more yards.
Nice under from Henry, working so hard this game. Good toe in.
Yeah, Oldfield tight on the sideline, but good presence of mind. Might squeeze it to Durbin. Lovely done. Throw going out nice and early, and a little bit of a grind in that point, but Bristol getting it done. And that's really, that and one other, the only points in the game where we've seen multiple turns, I believe. I'm just going to double check my maths. Yeah, that's it. The point where Bristol held to make it 6-4, the only points this game where a side had touched the disc more than once. It just shows that the game is been played at a very clean, quick tempo.
Absolutely, it's feels on a knife edge, and I've enjoyed seeing the resilience from Bristol there to fight back and to generate turnovers. O-lines more and more now are thinking about, okay, on the turn, what's our strategy?
11 seconds, please.
We saw a poachy set from Bristol initially when they lost the disc, and then really relentless match defence after that.
Yeah, it was great O-line defence from the Bristolians. Derwin calling for more communication defensively. But Bristol now have got to achieve something that they've not achieved yet at all this game, and they've got to get the disc off Yaka's O-line.
They certainly weren't far away in the first half. I think some small adjustments. Wouldn't mind seeing a short transition zone or something to just stop that initial deep look and then tighten up.
Wind just picking up ever so slightly. Olivier's unmarked.
Blown coverage somewhere. Yaka taking advantage of it.
Yeah, getting it beyond midfield already.
Good handled defence, but that's a great break up the line.
And then the shot coming to Delaunay. You mentioned that they did get them bogged down slightly, but they've just been able to find those break throws when required.
Absolutely. It's such an asset of Yaka to have cutters that are very comfortable on the disc, and that makes those situations so much harder to, makes it difficult to maintain pressure in those situations. You know, on the sideline, really good handler defense there. The disc slows down, probably gets to 5, 6, and that's a really great opportunity to ramp up the pressure, but then a really comfortable break up the line.
Yeah, Divya Ramesh, not really a huge amount she could do about that. And when you get that break side space, if you can get the disc out of the hands quickly, it is so tough to try and put a lid on it, as Bristol have found to their cost. 12-7 then, Yaka leading, just over 10 minutes left before cap here. Women's final action at London Invite.
Always on the move? You can keep up to date with ULTI.TV on all of our social media channels. Like, follow, subscribe, share us with a friend, or send us a message just to say hey. Thank you for supporting us in our mission to grow Ultimate everywhere.
We are a group of Ultimate players, coaches and video enthusiasts. We've worked with the major federations and the greatest events.
We're on a mission to make Ultimate huge. We want our videos and live streams to be free to watch.
We want to make stories that not only reach you,
but also reach people outside the Ultimate community.
Like and subscribe, ULTI.TV, the best in the world.
Become a member and
fund
fund
our work to cover more events in the future and to bring more stories and live coverage to the eyes of the Ultimate world and beyond.
The greatest Ultimate bag, sponsors of the London Invite here. Live from the Grasshoppers Rugby Club for the 3rd year running. Our first final of the day in the women's division. Yaka with a 12-7 advantage here over Bristol in a game that has been of the very highest quality. Benji Rees alongside Tommy Garwood, and we were just, chit-chatting as we do during the break. Just so impressed by what both teams have put out there.
Absolutely, this is exactly what you want from a final. It's been closely fought, it's felt close and it's felt tight the whole game. And the test now is, can the Bristol O-line show some resilience and battle through the grind that they're seeing Yaka force them into as we isolate space there to Henry again.
Henry so often the initiator, back to Boyd. Thought she might give the return pass. Instead, Hocking on the far side.
Running a lot through Lulu Boyd and Lisa Hocking in the backfield. Seems like Yaka are happy with that, and they're happy with these swings as long as Bristol don't go forward.
Yeah, it's a bit more of a containment style defence at the moment here from Yaka.
Good switch between Bas and Mandio.
And it feels like they have bogged them down a little bit, going for the blade down the sideline. But Bikian flashed in, and Grace Andrews, well, she seemed a lot less bothered by that pressure than I did. And Oldfield down the far sideline to Tash Collins for the score.
Calm as you like, Grace Andrews, and then there was an overload from Bristol, swung into the far side and popped it in.
Babikian there, she saw exactly what I saw, that there was a little bit of float on that and there was time, but great focus from Andrews, not just to make the catch, but not overly worried about the sideline position there as well. Comfortably in bounds, and if you're further downfield and you go for those but you don't get there, that will leave you out of position, and then Bristol really utilising the width of the field, spreading it laterally all the way from one side to the other as Collins catches the score.
I think that's where the Bristol O-line will find success. There's a touch at the moment of reluctance to swing the disc, especially as they're in their own third and going up to halfway, and I think if they make a small adjustment to swing more and clear players through a touch more, then it'll feel a lot easier. Now for the Bristol D-line, trying to get the first turn for them of the game in this point. Wins picking up a touch. Their forces have been good, they've forced some difficult throws, but the Yaka O-line have been equal to those. Some really great inside breaks. Let's see if this changes now.
Yeah, managed to get the disc off just a solitary time.
Looks like a bit of a dominator. Cycling cutters in now. Oh, close from Ali Rodriguez.
Yeah, not a huge amount of motion from the backfield, so going down.
Oh, there it is.
And Matthias with the layout from Delaval. What can Bristol do? Looking to make a game of this. Here's a rarity. First time calling Molly Wedge's name all game. And there's an hour on the clock.
Oh, that's a lovely shot up the line. That's a great break.
Blading the backhand to Wedge. Wedge with a flick of the head. Now Durbin taking on the break throw down the line from Wedge. And it was too low and didn't give Durbin a chance.
Excellent response from the Bristol D-line after fairly miserly game from the Yaka O to come out and put some real pressure on the handler space. I think that's what generated the turn there. It can be a difference maker in games like this, is handler pressure. Oh.
And you see it again there, not able to get the easy reset off. Bristol's defence has clearly cranked up, but that one offline and tipped to the floor. Yaka trying to get it in quickly off the turn before Bristol's defence gets their teeth sunk in. Olivier. Down the line. It was a spectacular effort from Rika Knudsen. But in the end, just some carpet burn.
Again, this is generated from really tough handler defence.
Yeah, they're not getting those easy resets just to keep stall counts ticking over and slightly change those angles. Durbin wants to go off the line. Wedge, I think that throw is going to be a little bit behind. I just wonder if Johnson has seen it a little bit earlier, whether she would have had a second effort attempt.
Maybe. Durbin there just left alone a little bit on the far sideline. That's a tough spot to be in. Downfield cutters not quite as active.
Delaval, excellent find across the pitch to Olivier. Out of her hands quickly, Tisson. The German to Olivier, back to Tisson. Trying the jump into the end zone. And Yaka can see the finish line now. Job's not done yet, but they are 2 away from victory at 13-8.
Yeah.
Generating turnovers now, Bristol, but the clock's rapidly running out on them. And Yaka were too good for too long.
They were. It's positive signs, definitely, and I think there's wins to take away from Bristol from that point, absolutely. But just maybe a touch late in the game. I think we'll see, good jump in there, I think we'll see that again, and a good positive response from the D-line again now that they've seen some success from it. But yeah, with 2 point, Yaka needing 2 points for the win, a momentous comeback would be great to watch, but
it feels unlikely. With all due respect to Bristol.
Yeah, when that's been the only point that Yaka seem to have struggled, and that Bristol have generated some turnovers, it's been so impressive how comfortable they've looked the whole game.
I think still though Bristol can certainly be proud with the way they've played in this game. They haven't looked out of place by any stretch.
No, absolutely not. And I hope we see a game like this at Euros in a couple of months' time, and I expect to see it be a lot closer.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to more games like this at UK Nationals in a couple of weeks' time as well.
Absolutely.
Hocking shooting down the sideline, but Bikian is not going to leave anything to chance. Jogs away, job done. Well, half done anyway.
Hocking's been looking good with those backhands, but that just drifted out the wrong way. Let's see some bravery from Bristol here. We have Henry in the deep space, Oldfield, Hocking and Kantorowicz in the unders. Really giving up this weak side swing to Castillo, just coming onto your screen now. Keeping the disc on that sideline, that's not bad at all. Good defense on the Hammers there.
Yeah, able to clamp down a little bit.
That's a wonderful inside break.
Yeah, opened up that centre of the field. And Meisel saw the deep cut going from Babikian. Henry saw it as well and just sat in that lane. Excellent recognition.
Absolutely, that feels like stopping a almost guaranteed goal. Babikian has been excellent. Hocking now, discus slowed down. Yaka sensing, tempo's starting to slip.
Oldfield trying to curl one in there to Collins, superbly done.
The catching under pressure this game has been outstanding.
Hocking looking for Collins again. Just couldn't quite get her feet set, I think. It looked for a minute like it was going to be good.
Absolutely. They haven't been far away at all, Bristol, from finding some real consistency.
But when you're playing a side of this quality, you don't need to be very far off for things to get away from you quickly.
Absolutely not. That's the sign of a great team who can take advantage even when teams are feeling good and are looking good and are playing with some good flow.
So Bass pointing their colours away, giving some illustrations. That one, I think, went out of bounds relatively rapidly.
Yeah, that's a good look from Yaka. Tried to blow up the bracket on this side by having a player slash across and giving lots of underspace, but just didn't quite complete on the throw.
Boyd putting a name on the put-in. And going to get very positive field position with it as well. Jam it in there. Go on. You know you want to.
Opportunity now for Bristol right at the end zone line. That's not a great spot to get the disc.
No, they've isolated Oldfield. And they're still looking for her.
Oh.
And just past the bid in Babikian for the score. And I mean just past.
Good job from Bristol there to put that in under quite significant pressure. That's a good sign for the O-line, that they are showing some resilience to that type of pressure and able to fight and get the disc back. That's going to be really important for Nationals in a couple of weeks. Hopefully build some confidence for them as well.
As he Zen's hips not quite in position, Babikian senses that the disc is coming and tries to dive across the line and get the block. It wasn't to be. Yaka 13-9 then, and the clock just about... Well, literally before I could finish saying it, that is the hooter for the end of game. And it will be Yaka's title.
The rules this weekend are if a game finishes and the score is a difference of 2 points or more, the game ends, even in finals play.
It feels a bit anticlimactic, but we've got a schedule to keep to. There's a bit of me that is like, yes, we don't have to worry about games overrunning, and there's another part of me that is feeling boring. But it was a long day yesterday. We were here from 9 till 9. Well, we were streaming from 9 till 9. We were here when it opened at 8. There's the break from Pierre, and looking around at Le Bourne, not quite sure how that happened.
Great pressure from Bristol. Yaka just isolated their handler, and that they found 6 players downfield. That Bristol did a really good job of making them battle for the underspace. And now they're swinging nicely, great tempo.
Yeah, there's a real verve about this possession for Bristol's D-line offense.
They're hitting this with some real intensity now. Key is not to let it slow down.
Yeah, wanting to end it on a high.
Oh, they have done as well.
Wedge down the line from Ramesh. It's too little, too late in the end, but I mean, it is good to prove that certainly you are capable of doing it. Just, wasn't quite there. I'm not sure whether they heard the end of game hooter because they are going again. I think they might maybe for the finals it's game to 14. I don't know if they've changed the cap rules without telling me.
No, it looks like resident TD, Conor McHale is telling the teams that the game's over and getting thoroughly booed from the crowd for it.
I mean, they want to play more Ultimate, and again, it's such a weird way to end a game in Ultimate when you're always used to that, having to score that final point to win. But Bristol will end on a high, even though it is deservedly, I think, Yaka's game. They were superb and supreme and showed why they are one of the favourites for the European title at the end of the season. 13-10 final score here over Bristol.
Absolutely, and I hope Bristol are able to take some positives away. Getting break opportunities on such a good team is really positive, and see them take that forward into nationals.
Yeah, for the first half, Yaka were just so crisp and so miserly with it. But as the game wore on, Bristol began to fight their way back into it. Have a look at the stats there for you. Generated 5 break chances in the end, only able to hit on the last of those. Yaka probably would have liked to hit on more, but again, I think both sides have put a lot of good tape out there in this game.
Absolutely, and not really that far away, I don't think, in terms of gameplay.
Well, Bristol actually completing about 50% more passes than their opponents did, but Yaka had some of those possessions where they were able to punch it in, 1-2 pass, bang. Whereas Bristol, I think they were, forced to be a little bit slower in terms of their offensive temperament, that just slow things down, and Yaka almost coaxed the errors out of them at times. And they will be your London Invite champions for the 2nd year running. We're going to wrap things up now because we have mixed final action coming. I was going to say in the rearview mirror, it's pretty slap bang upon us now. The Barramundis taking on Great Britain. But for all of our ULTI.TV crew and Tommy Garwood alongside me, Benji Rees, we'll see you on the other side for the mixed final. Yaka are your women's division London Invite champions.
Thank you. Thanks.
Yeah, Milan. I mean, Ultimate.
ULTI.TV.